Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got episode 175 today.
Is this when we open up one of the smaller bottles of champagne?
I guess 175 is somewhat of a milestone.
50 and 100s are, bottles of Dom Perignon, but this is probably not, Boone's Farm Apple or something like that.
175 is still a pretty good clip. And considering we had no idea what was going to happen when we started the show, and now here we are at 175.
Yeah.
So ways to get a hold of us here at the Digital to Dice podcast. DigitalToDice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. DigitalToDice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Digital to Dice. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, if you think the show's worth 50 cents an episode, head us over to patreon.com/Digital to Dice, and you can help support the show that way.
Yes.
Today, the topic today is, how do they do that? And I think we've probably done something similar before. Hopefully it's not the same exact title. 175 shows. I don't remember all of them. But I've run into some crazy things in my games. And you have too. I think everyone has. And so we're going to talk about that. It's like you're rolling dice, and somehow it just transports you to the stadium or the field or wherever it is, and it's just wow. It just sucks you in, and it's so fun. And we're going to talk about a few of the things that happened to us that way. But I still, as somewhat of a new player to this, call me maybe 3, 4, 5 years into this hobby, maybe something like that.
Oh no, the show starts year 5 in July.
So maybe 2018. So maybe 5 years or so that I've been doing this. I think I started with Shootout and then Stratomatic Hockey. I started with Sports Mogul a while ago, and then but I get into the cards and dice a little bit after that. But still, I'm still amazed, and I still tell people this, that you'd be amazed that you're rolling dice and looking at cards, and somehow you are playing a hockey game or a baseball game or a football, whatever it is. And it's pretty amazing. So we're going to talk about today, how do they do that?
My cat's restless, by the way.
Yeah, I see that. She's like doing laps around you over in the bed. Unbelievable.
I feel like Gulliver.
It's kind of like a kid when you get on the phone. So when you get on the phone, the kid's got to act up. That's just kind of how it goes.
Mommy.
Yeah, exactly. Mommy, and then you hang up the phone, and they go off and they do what they were doing. It's unbelievable. That's right. It's unbelievable how they sense that. The cats are the same way.
Same way.
So anyway,
sorry.
Real quick on the weather, you got a hell of a lot more snow than we did. We were supposed to get destroyed, and we got just barely. Now, some of Massachusetts got a lot. The inner parts got a lot. We didn't get much, but you got nailed.
Oh, I bet Al got 2 feet.
Oh, really?
I bet he did.
Oh, wow.
Just reading around what I saw. We were supposed to get 3 inches, and we got 11.
Wow.
I was streaming yesterday, the ball game I did yesterday. There was no watches or warnings for the city of Burlington or my part of Vermont when I started that game at noon. And then I got a little beep, that special weather statement, which meant it was snowing hard enough to tell people to kind of get off the roads if you're there. Yeah. That quickly turned into a winter weather advisory, which in this neck of the woods is 3 to 6 inches of snow. Be careful with that if you're going to get some snow. And then by 12:30, so between 11:45 and 12:30, we went from nothing to a full-fledged winter storm warning. Now, in this part of the world, that's 6+. Right. It's a winter storm warning. Like, whoa. And so we got 11 out of the whole deal. Tonight, no parking on the streets as they get all the dead snow off, and it's just not going to warm up enough for it to. Of course, the worst thing will happen is that it starts to melt and starts to freeze. Snow you can move.
Yeah.
Ice you can't.
You can't move ice, yeah.
So here's one of the things. As you hear the ambulance or fire department outside the hall on the road, Miss M. Yes, I love you too. My sisters live in Rutland, which is about 60 miles south of where I am. Killington, the ski area Killington. They're on the valley floor. Killington's about 5 miles to the east. They got about 3 inches out of this. They got what we were expecting, okay?
Right.
West Rutland, literally the next town over, surprisingly to the west of Rutland, had 19 inches.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely.
It literally came down. If you got it, you got it, and if you didn't, you got nothing.
Yeah, there was a line there somewhere. Yeah, so we lucked out. I was on the easy side of it this time. I don't even know if I pulled out a shovel or not, but there were some places that got it pretty bad.
I know there were some places in southern Vermont, about an hour north of where Al is. They got 36 inches out of this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, 11. I mean, it's been such a mild snow winter that this was our biggest storm of the year by far. I think we had 6 or 7, but 11. This is the first one I think this year we topped 10.
Yep.
So anyway, that's our weather.
So you got a lot of snow. We didn't get much, and some other people did.
Speaking of weather,
all right.
Speaking of weather, was watching something, and of course, Facebook picks up on what you watch, so they try to serve you pictures of that.
Yeah.
And so apparently, Al Roker has a college-age son.
Okay.
And he's taking his train out of Grand Central or Penn Station or wherever it was, and he's taking the Vermonter back because you can see. So Al Roker's kid goes to school somewhere around here because the stops were Montpelier, Waterbury, all places in Vermont.
Huh.
So anyway, that's the weather in your neck of the woods.
Right.
So.
All righty.
I bored the cat with that one. She yawned as I told that.
Yeah. Oh, should we get into what we're playing?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you lead off with what you're doing over there?
Yeah, and why don't you lead off with what you're doing over here? Well, one of the reasons why the topic came up is I had a crazy game yesterday.
Okay.
Between the Mets and the Marlins, as we're now into June in my 2001 in action PC season Odyssey. And just so you know, you're a random midweek game between two good teams from that era. And the Mets, at one point in the third inning, the Mets were up 5-0 before the Marlins grabbed a bat. Okay. And so at that point, you're thinking in your head, okay, I've got to keep people amused for the hour in a game that's going to be an absolute blowout. But in the back of my head, you got 27 outs. You've used none of them. It was 7-0 after 3, New York. Again, okay, you got 18 outs. You've burnt 9, but the Mets pitcher has been jello. He's been hittable. 7-1, 7-4, 7-5 in the 8th. So 7-5 in the 9th. They need 2 to tie, 3 to win. I always do it, regardless of the score, even if they're down 10. Okay, 10 to tie, 11 to win, 12 to make your hair pull out. And they tied it. The Marlins tied the game in the 9th, 7-7. And it's about, now, I had some health things, and you're going to get in the, okay, what are we doing, Em? And kind of a half of a cold, and so my voice is starting to go. Been on for about an hour or whatever. And we go to the 14th. And some guy keeps unsubbing to my channel and wondering he's got things to do and blah, 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 blah.
I did hear that there are not necessarily your channel, but there are some channels that purposely set up extra innings just to get people to watch and talk about. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you're doing that on purpose, but there are some people I hear that might do that.
You can watch the pickle on a tape delay, okay? And so Mets go up 8-7 in the 14th. Okay, we're about done. It's about 1:30, and my voice is going, and I'm ready for a nap. And then the Marlins score 3 in the bottom of the 14th on a homer by Mikey Lowell, of all people,
wow,
to win it. And so, yeah, so the Marlins were down 7, came back to tie, fell back behind. And so one of those amazing games. And over the course of that in the chat, can you dig Mario Mendoza up? And just kind of one of those amazing things that you remember from just, amazing finishes or whatever. But yeah, the Marlins won. Sorry, Pesky Pole, if I blew this for you. 10-8 in a game that took me an hour and 39 minutes to play.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot. My voice was so gone, I didn't even do the rest of the games on the day. I did that this morning when we signed on to do today's game. Here's what you missed the night before.
I'm supposed to do some college club hockey games this week as I wrap up my busy season, and I got the schedule. So they send you the spreadsheet of all the games, and I think there's 8 rinks at this facility I'm going to. It's absolutely huge. And they got games going on everywhere. So it shows you the schedule. So I told the guy, I'll do a couple games on Thursday, a couple games on Friday. It's about what I can do. Because they're 2.5 hour games. With Zamboni breaks and the whole. It's a long, long game that you're doing.
So you doing this with someone or solo?
I'm supposed to have a color commentator. In fact, it said that you might want to rotate, so I might be doing color one and play-by-play another.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a new gig for me, so I'm just going to show up and do whatever they need me to do. I'm looking at the schedule, and there's some guys that are on there for 4 games in a row. I don't know
how they do it.
I'm like, there is no way you could do play-by-play for 4 full games like this. That's 8 hours plus, 8 to 9 hours. There's no way.
You and I belong to the Facebook group of play-by-play people. I don't really chat on there because I'm not doing real sports. But this is the time of year with high school basketball championships, and it'll happen again with baseball and softball. And because we can stream everything now, you don't necessarily need to have the sponsor on the local radio station. You can get your game out there. Where they are doing these 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, and they might have been traveling like you do. I mean, this is at least in your neck of the woods. But imagine an hour and a half drive. What is that? I don't think is Worcester that far from you?
Yeah, Worcester's a little over an hour. Yeah.
So imagine driving to Worcester, setting up for your first face-off at 10 in the morning, and getting back in the door at midnight.
Oh, yeah. No, it's tough. I just don't know how these guys' voice, if you sign up for do 4 games play-by-play, you can't have a voice by the end. Either that or you're not doing the true play-by-play. You're doing the called the Vince Neil of Motley Crue version of play-by-play, where you say every third word. That was the joke with him. He didn't sing the songs. He would just sing a couple of words. And I tuned into, I'm not going to say what channel it was, but it was on TV, and the people were just talking. The game was going on, and it was just... Yeah, so, he had a great season over here, and now he's hoping to go to this college over here, and, this goalie, he's back from a leg injury, and there's a shot, and that goes wide, and we got a face-off. So he wasn't doing the play-by-play. They were just chatting. I could do that for 4 games, but if I'm trying to call the game, there's no way. I do 2 games. Not only am I physically exhausted with my voice, I'm emotionally drained. And I wonder how many people get that emotional into the game, because there's no way you could do that.
Especially a playoff game. This isn't just your random where, grandmas and grandpas and boyfriends and girlfriends care about. I mean, for these players, it's your season.
Yeah. But just getting back to what you were saying about being tired after an hour and a half, I don't know how these guys can do it. I don't know how these guys can do it for more. Like I said, 2 games for me is about 5 hours. Now, it's not constant talking, but I mean, it's go, and I don't.
It's a 2-hour show. If I do a double header, I plan on 2 hours, and there's only 2 breaks. There's a break. There's a 30-second commercial if you're watching on Twitch midway through the game, and I take a drink, and then there's however long it does to take me out to the ball game in the 7th.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah,
right. You're talking the rest of the time. Now in real sports, there's breaks and all that, but no, I have, and I probably should put it where I can closer, a bag of Luden's Wild Cherry sugar-free drops.
Oh, those are good. I love those.
And if I don't want to drink too much, because then you got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I'm by myself for a long period of time.
Are they the hard ones or the soft Ludens?
They're the hard ones.
Okay.
And I can just tuck it in the corner of my mouth and nurse it while I'm calling the play-by-play, and it does help. It does help. But, yeah, Ricola, I think the only way you could get through a doubleheader like that would be to grab the bags of Ricolas or whatever, because if you get drinking,
yeah, I don't drink a lot. You're supposed to hydrate, but I don't, because I'm always running to the bathroom myself.
The curious thought with that would be, obviously you don't want fish ice or anything like that. If you just worked on a glass of ice and you just kind of put that chip in your mouth, because what you want when you're doing that is, as we're talking about what we're supposedly playing, is you want to numb that throat as much as possible.
Yeah, I get a big Dunkin's iced coffee, sometimes 2, and I just sip it. Yep. And that cools down my throat.
So what else have I been playing now that we've gone completely off the rails with that? So, yeah, I kind of wonder, especially if you end up doing some baseball this year, if you just get some chips of ice in a cup and do it that way, just to keep that throat numb. put in the Strat football game, playing around with that again, having a ton of fun with that. My bowling seems to be going better. One of us still plays gyms, and I'll save the Eve story for the topic because it actually does relate.
Okay. Let me see. I have been in a gaming renaissance as I'm slowly working myself out of the busy season, and one by one these extra jobs start to peel off. I have some time to play. I dove into my pile of shame, and I'm been doing a lot of pile of shame diving. And I said, okay, I need to justify this purchase. So I pulled out 1973 Strat Baseball that has been sitting over there since I probably made my first Strat Baseball purchase years ago. And I'm because I just grabbed everything that was in close to my wheelhouse. I think I grabbed 73, 77, and 80. Maybe 82. I forget. There wasn't many seasons that I wanted to get at the time, but I grabbed them all. I was like, okay, let me get them. And 73 has been sitting over there. And it's not one of my favorite seasons, but I was like, I need to play this. So I said, what can I do? So I pulled out Strat Basic, and I'm playing the 73 ALCS between Oakland and Baltimore. And
remember, that's a best of 5, not a best of 7.
Yep, and I'm having an absolute blast. I think I've streamed all 3 games. They've been fun. Baltimore took the first 2 at home. Oakland come back with a win in Game 3. I think Joe Rudy hit a home run or something like that. It's just been fun. It's been so fun. So I think Baltimore's up 2-1 in that series. But so Strat ALCS. I picked up off of Strat Facebook page, Strat Marketplace Facebook page, something. Someone sold me their 1979 Strat season, so that came in the mail. It's definitely the older stuff. It's really nothing new.
So it's the original from
these are pretty
spring
old.
Of 80 or whatever.
Yeah, these are pretty old, these cards, and so I've been incorporating that into my 1979 replay. So I've been using Digital Dugout to keep the stats for that, and I've been using a couple of different games, and now I can play Strat with it. And so I'm just playing basic right now. I'm trying to get back into it. Having a blast. Absolute blast was the 79 season. And so I finally get to play some Strat with that. What else have I been playing here? Oh, speaking of Strat, my mystery season, as we mentioned, was 1911. And I did play the first opening day game there, or opening day for the Boston Rustlers. And I think they actually won that game. It was kind of fun. So I had the Boston Rustlers, and I forget who they played. Was it the Brooklyn Dodgers, maybe?
It was Brooklyn.
Yep. And so they had Peaches Graham in the game and the whole. I'm loving the names of these guys. And in fact, I played the first game I played offline just to kind of practice. It was the Red Sox and the Senators, and the Red Sox destroyed them 15-1. Smoky Joe Wood, a Sloppy Joe Wood,
Smoky Joe Wood. Let's not get the cards and letters for that, okay? We know that baseball is a lax sport for you.
I just have fun with it. I call him Sloppy Joe, but Smoky Joe, he pitched. He won 15-1, 15-1, and he went 4 for 5 from the plate. It was like, so I will be playing a whole bunch of 1911 Red Sox. I was planning on playing the Rustlers just as a joke.
I joke about Larry Gardner being your relative, but I think he probably is.
He might be.
He's from my neck of the woods up here in Vermont and went down and had a very successful career for the Red Sox.
Interesting. So, 1911, I thought it was just going to be kind of a fun thing, and it's turning out to be a lot more fun than I thought. So I've been doing that.
You like that era. You like to steal.
It's fictional for me. It's fictional for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a couple of the names I know, Tris Speaker I knew, and there's a couple guys that I maybe heard of, but that's an era of it's baseball. First of all, my baseball window is tiny, as you know, so I'm way out of my comfort zone. But I found magic with the Spiders in this 1911 season. Again, it's you
got Walter Johnson for Washington and Christy Mathewson for the Giants. You got some.
Yeah, I never heard of those guys.
You will.
But it's been fun. I've only played a couple games, and I've had an absolute blast with 1911. So that's been fun. I also picked up Back to Basics Baseball from Downey. And, of course, I printed out 79 is what I printed out. And,
but it's a team sheet game, right?
Holy cow, yeah. So Back to Basics, I think it's right around $20, something like that. And you get the directions, and you get the fast action cards. You get 100 two-sided fast action cards with it, and that drives the game. And then you got a link to a website where it has every season from 1871 to I think 2014, and you can download any team you want and play. And it just gives you ratings and stats for every player, and then you flip the card and look, if they're A, then this. If they're a B, then this. And you start with a pitcher, and then you go to the batter. So sometimes if the pitcher's a strikeout, that's it, you're strikeout. If it says swing, then you go to the batter and you see what the batter does on his card. And then it's got, different, outs that you have, ground outs and fly outs. And if they're deep, you can get a guy home. If they're shallow, the guy stays. It's all fast action card driven. Very simple to play for the most part. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And so I actually played a couple games of Back to Basics on the channel, one being 79 that I actually played right in my 79 replay. And you know what's weird, Ron, is the first game of Back to Basics I played was like, okay, it was fine. It was fine. And a couple people said, yeah, it's fine. It's a basic game. It's fine. The second and the third games I played, they were really good. And so I played a couple games, like, okay, yeah, whatever. I got my fun out of that, But then I played a third game. It's like, something? I had a lot more fun than I thought. This game is getting more fun as I go along. So I'm happy. I'm happy at that. I'm happy that it's something. And of course, they get $18.99, so I can play some spiders. I could even pull out if I wanted to pull out.
Everyone failed. Everyone's an F.
I could pull 1911 out and play some of the. I mean, I have every season I'm doing right now. If I wanted to branch off the 73 ALCS from Strat and play it in Back to Basics, I could. This is going to be a fun little swing game. You know what I mean? Where
I think the thing with this or Pocket Pennant Run is it doesn't really get in your way. And, I think the key with any game and any season that you do is where's your connection to it? It's not necessarily, because let's face it, it's math. Mm-hmm. Every game engine is math to a degree. We are doing math, whether it rolls RNGs behind the scenes or you're getting the results off a card. It's math. But it's math because sports produces stats, it turns into stories. And so a game like Back to Basics, which isn't going to give you the full flavored stuff, it's kind of like a Klondike bar. If you really want the vanilla ice cream experience, you're going to got the Ben & Jerry's or the Haagen-Dazs and eat the vanilla ice cream that you like or whatever. But if you just want the ice cream sandwich, if you're just looking for that experience, it's going to give you the same thing.
Yeah. No, it is. It's called Back to Basics, and it is a basic game. You're not going to get all the little intricacies that happen during a baseball game or whatever, but you're going to play a very fun game of baseball. And it's not nearly as deep as some of the other games, but neither is it a shallow game or a hollow game.
Right.
It somehow captures the spirit, like a Pocket Pennant Run. It captures the spirit of it. It doesn't do everything a game does, but in this neat little package, it does quite a bit. And I was very impressed with, especially for the price that you get every single season.
Yeah.
And I guess if you want the newer seasons, you can get them. They do charge for that, but you get everything from 1871 to I think it's 2014 is where it caps off. So if you want anything in the last was 8 years or whatever it is, you do have to pay for it.
Now, is it like an extended package? You get all 8 seasons for price X, or is it individual seasons?
That I didn't know. I just when it arrived, it said you go to this website. It goes up to 2014. After that, you do have to pay. I thought it was individually for a season. It didn't say how much. I suppose you could write them and find out what you wanted to do. But
yeah,
if they weren't that expensive, if you want to play a modern season, then that's a possibility. And the last thing I've been playing, oh my gosh, I've really been hitting the hockey bones, as you know. That's really been since I.
Oh, that helper.
That helper changes is a game changer. So I found an old laptop, and I'm using the helper on the laptop, and I got it set up in Studio A, and I'm running the game right off the spreadsheet. And I've been banging out the games left and right. I mean, I used to be able to play a period or so, or a couple of periods a day. I'm playing if I have the day off or whatever, or the night off, I can play 2 games in a night now. That's pretty good. 2 games in a night. It really is. So I decided to pull out 71-72 and replay the Stanley Cup Finals, Boston, New York. And it's been so fun. And that's what kind of prompted the discussion for today. How do they do that? Because I had some amazing games, and I'll save it for the topic there. But the Rangers took both games in Boston, games 1 and 2 in Boston. Yep, they did. And it was was pretty amazing, how it happened and the finishes I had that I'll talk about in that later. But yeah, so I'm playing 71-72 Hockey Bones Stanley Cup Finals, and it's been great. It's really been great. And let me just add before we get into the show topic that in our Discord and even on our Facebook group, there's some people. I think was it Glenn that started this?
Glenn Victor, yeah.
Yeah. He started. Now, I had used PowerPoint for some of my things in the past. It's just nice and easy to use. It creates an image, and it's just PowerPoint's great for stuff like this. He found some old newspaper templates and started posting them. I think it was in the Patreon group, but also on Facebook. And it's just like the top fold of a newspaper, and it just got a title and what's happening. He put a picture in there, the 3 stars, and he's describing what's going on. I think he's playing Action PC Hockey, and he's playing the playoffs out, and it's just like a quick flash of a newspaper read. It's just like what happened in the game. So instead of this long drawn out recap, it's right there with a picture, and it's like I'm reading every single one of those. And I was like, I'm encouraging people on the Patreons, like, use this because this is something I'll follow because it's nice and quick. It's graphical. It looks nice. So it looks like a newspaper. And he just writes a little blurb about it. What happened in the game with the 3 stars? It's like, that was great. So I started doing that myself. And so you've probably seen that on Facebook and on the Patreon if you're in the Patreon group.
I know you're not
Discord.
I know you're not a huge baseball fan. You're probably not an older baseball fan. But when ABC had the rights back in the 70s and 80s, and they would do their playoff games. Of course, they would only be on for select Mondays over the course of the season, and then the playoffs were nightly. And so to recap what had happened the game before, they would have the Sports Tribune. So a headline, Say hits home run, and then you'd see the pictures of Say hitting the home run. Guidry strikes out 15.
Oh, I remember those. I do remember those.
So, so the newspaper templates. So what happens tonight? Can the Yankees put them away? Thanks, Howard. So, but so that's,
those have been so fun.
Very cool what they did at O's Blank Angels 3-0,
Yeah. So he's got a similar thing with that where you just find an old image on the internet somewhere and drop it in and write a fake newspaper article about your game. So I've been doing that with 71-72. It's coming out really neat. And again, it's quick. It's like bing, 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 bing. It's like people can read it real quick and it's just a quick picture image. So so that's been really kind of fun doing that. So, so I've been playing a ton. A lot of baseball, and I mix it up with some hockey. I'll play a baseball game, then play a hockey game, and it's just been kind of fun here as I finally get back into playing a lot of things. So, should we get to the topic at hand?
Yes.
All right.
Now, the OnlyFans portion of the audience would have seen the cat bathe herself and fall asleep in the blankets behind me.
Yeah, you need to get an OnlyFans just so you can have the cat do that, Anyway, so let's talk about how do they do that. And this kind of started last night when I was playing the Hockey Bones, games 1 and 2 that I was just talking about. And so the Rangers are winning game 1. And, again, this is a game you're rolling dice. Now, again, I'm using the helper, so it's rolling all the dice at once for me in the whole bit. And that's, again, been a time saver.
But it doesn't change the results at all.
No, it doesn't.
It
just I get 10 rolls at once that I can look at and not have to roll 10 times, which saves a ton of time. And so I'm playing late in the game, and I'm like, man, Rangers going to win this. They're up 5-4. Nothing the Bruins can do. And the puck goes back to the defenseman. So I got the goalie pulled, and it goes back to the defenseman. I'm like, oh, well, that's the end of the game. Well, I look at the dice roll, and it's in his shooting range, which means it has a chance for a goal. And a lot of times in Hockey Bones, if you do get it in range, there's a good chance you're going to score. And I'm like, this would be unbelievable. Last roll of the game, the last dice roll of the game, Don Ari at the point for the Bruins. He has a chance to tie it. What a magical thing that would be. And when I look at the dice roll for Ed Jockerman, he makes the save. And so as obviously being a Boston fan, as much as I wanted Boston to win, it was awesome. That was
what you want.
So awesome. And then game 2, the Bruins are leading 5-2. Busick scores in the middle of the third period. It's 5-2 Boston. I'm like, okay, they're going to even up the series. This is going to be good. We're going to get a nice long Stanley Cup Finals, right? All of a sudden, Rangers score. Rangers tie it. I'm like, are you kidding me? 5 minutes left in the game. And they've scored 3 goals to tie it. And then with just, I want to say about 48 seconds left, maybe less, Jean Rattel scores for the Rangers to make it 6-5. They turned a 5-2 game with 5 minutes left into a 6-5 win. And it was just, how do they do that? How do they, that was so realistic. Both of those games were realistic. Like, it's like the Rangers hanging on, Ari with the last second shot, Jacqueline makes this ridiculous save to win the game. In game 2, Rangers are down and out, Bruins are crushing them, we're going back to New York 1-1, and then they get one goal. And then another one. And it's like momentum just took over like it does in real life. And they won the game and left the Bruins stunned. And I mean, so I'm sitting there, how I'm rolling dice. And I'm looking at the card. This card in my hand, right? I'm looking at this card in my hand, and yet I'm transported back to the Boston Garden in 1972, watching the Rangers have this amazing comeback. And it's like, how does this happen? Even the baseball game. So I'm playing the 73 ALCS in Strat Baseball. You know, and it's like, no score. And then Joe Rudy hits a home run. And that run kind of stands up through most of the game, and you're on your edge, the edge of your seat. You know, can Baltimore come back? And then somehow Reggie Jackson walks, goes to second, and he gets singled home or whatever happened. I forget what happened. And then, who was it? Paul Blair homers for Baltimore in the 7th of the 8th. And now it's a 1-run game. It's like, this is awesome. And then I get a guy on first to get on with one out in the 9th. I get a pinch runner. He steals the base. He's on second now, tying run on base, and the tension. This was
Dave Roberts. You just described the Dave Roberts
exactly. Now, as it turned out, they didn't get the run home, and Oakland hung on for the win. But it's like, how is this doing this? You know, when I played the game a shootout hockey one time, and I was trying to go, I think I was doing the California Seals 73-74 season because they were terrible. And I played every game in that schedule. And it was one game that the other team had 2 goalies listed. I'm like, well, they won, so it's not like they pulled him because he was bad, so maybe he was hurt, right? Wouldn't you know, in that game of shootout, that goalie got hurt, and I had to bring the next guy. I don't know how it gets done. How do you make a game that just it mimics life so close sometimes?
I think the great thing about sports in general is that you don't know where the story's coming from. We can do all sorts of prep work, and goodness gracious, there's now every sport has a network, and you can talk about, you know, how great Tom Brady and this and that, and here's what should happen in game X. And then you get someone that you've never heard of, like Timmy Smith, running for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards in a Super Bowl. How the hell did that happen? You know, that sort of thing. Kid nearly loses an eye in a conference tournament game. It just kind of strange things like that. Tom Lawless in a World Series game, he hadn't had a home run in 2 years, takes the Twins deep and does a bat flip around. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's why I think sports does as well as it does in society, because the best drama in life is the unscripted drama, the unexpected. I mean, if you look at something like wrestling, for instance, the whole point is not that it's not athletic or anything like that, but the whole point is to get you to the edge of your seat and keep you there as long as possible. And that doesn't happen with real sports. You know, I remember watching, to take it even a further step back, you know, Murder, She Wrote. At one point of the show, they figured out that Van Johnson is the guest star again, and he's the one that's either being murdered or is the murderer. You know, I mean, that's okay. It's great in how she gets there, and she figures it out because her hair fell on a cup of tea or something like that. But sports has drama that just comes from nowhere, and you don't know when it's coming. Like this year's Super Bowl, for instance, the holding call, which set up the Woody field goal. The holding call that comes out was a hold. Still going to tell you that was a hold all the way through, but it just came from nowhere. And so as we get to how does it happen in a sim? Okay, in Strat football, you roll the black die and it comes up with an X. Yeah. And you know, and then you can just kind of like, Like, really? Do you take this? I mean, we've talked about this before, and especially in the hockey game. Do you set up the power play with 5 minutes to go to decide the outcome of your game, knowing that the chances are that the refs weren't really going to do that in real life unless there was something so painfully obvious that you had to call it. And so, yeah. And so to have that, I mean, look, all these games are math. They're all math. They're all based on averages, regardless of whether you play games or Strat or APA. It's all based on math. But it's random enough if you use a fast action card or dice or a computer that really anything can happen at any given time. And I do think that we in our heads get caught up in the momentum of that moment, like the Ranger comeback that you just described. The dice don't care.
Right.
It's not even seeing the cards. So if you're thinking, well, maybe the game is playing crooked with you, for instance, no, it's random dice rolls and Excel on a game you are playing with actual cards and dice. But there's no connection there.
I just find it just completely amazing that someone could sit down and design a game and get this kind of results. And I go back to my first game of Stratomatic Hockey to Strat Basic. I remember I ordered the game.
Right.
Well, I bought an old one off of eBay, so I had the instructions and everything. But when I bought I bought a new version of the game in a season, and they sent me the Word doc. So I printed out Quebec and Hartford, and I've told the story before. So while I was waiting for the actual game and that season to arrive, I printed out 2 of the scrub teams. And I think Guy Lafleur was on Quebec, and they were playing Hartford. Hartford's got a 1-0 lead. And this is Strat Basic, by the way. And Hartford's got a 1-0 lead, and there's a breakaway for Quebec. And I forget who. I think it was Joe Sakic. And Joe Sakic got stuffed on the breakaway.
So you had a 1-18, and you rolled a 20 or something like that?
So, yeah, and then off the face-off, the last play of the game, Guy Lafleur gets a rebound shot. And I think that was the one. That was the 1-15 on a goal, and Guy Lafleur would have tied it up, and he rolled an 18, and Sidorkovich, whoever it was, made another ridiculous save. That was my first game of Strat. That was my first game of cards and dice, anything.
And you're instantly hooked.
And I'm like, how does rolling dice and looking at these little pieces of paper simulate a game to a point where I was just like, here's a breakaway. Oh, it's a save. Are you kidding me? In the face-off. Oh, they win the face-off. Shot save. The rebound goes to Guy Lafleur. Of all people that could have been out there, went to Guy Lafleur. And he had a 1-15 chance to tie, 1-15 out of 20 to tie it. And I rolled an 18, and the game ends. And it was just like, wow. Again, how do they do that? And that's my first game ever. And I was just like, I was amazed. Because you get the stigma, rolling dice, playing ball, yeah, whatever. But these games can really do some amazing things to mimic the actual games. And really, from that very first game, that was unbelievable. When I think back to the Homebrew Summit Series cards for Shootout Hockey, okay, that somebody made, and I got them, and I played that 8-game series. That game just wrote story after story for me.
The whole point of Canada collapsing in the third period of Game 8.
Yeah,
but the Soviets scored 4 in that period or whatever.
Yeah, there was like 8-1.
I'm streaming something. You're playing. You're typing up updates, and I'm looking at them, and you could just see. I mean, again, anything can happen on any given play, statistically, and because we have an attachment to said players. You didn't just pick 2. You knew some of the players on Quebec. You knew Lafleur, obviously. You knew Sakic, and Sidorkovich, if you were bored, would entertain you on Sports Channel when the Whaler was on. And so there were things that we were able to. I mean, we're solving word problems. Everything that we hated in high school about algebra, if you catch a train and it goes 100 miles an hour and I catch it at 60, where are we colliding? Type deals. And so, but we know we can put visual images to X and Y in this case, LaFleur and Sakic, and Z is Sidorkiewicz. And
Right.
so how do you do this? Well, you have an 80% chance to score if something happens right, and you did, and instead of seeing it as, I mean, I've had games of strat hockey where you get trying to tie a game or whatever, and it's literally a 1-19, and you roll the 20. And you don't see that as a 20 roll. You don't see it as a dice roll. You hear the crowd either go off in exasperation or go off in jubilation because the goalie has made the tremendous save or whatever. And I think we're the ones that kind of think of moving pictures, like what you and I are doing.
Oh, it's a
right?
great Rush album. That's what you were talking about. You're talking about Rush, right?
No.
It's a great Rush album, by the way.
I'll
Their best one. Their best one.
I'll take your word.
Tom Sawyer. You ever heard of Tom Sawyer? Limelight.
Yes, I have heard that one. He's a mean whatever.
Mean Pride. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So think about what we're doing, right? Because we do this over StreamYard, and so we can see each other doing that. And so what a camera does is it takes, I think in our case, 60 still images a second. Okay. And our mind turns that into continued motion. So when I'm looking at Dave and he's going, how much longer is the story run? It go back and forth. In my mind, I see him move. I see his motion there back and forth. It's actually 60 still pictures of him moving his head back.
It's a flip book. Yeah, it's a flip book.
It's a flip book, and that's a lot of the magic of the game. Is it gives you a different result. We have random number generators with dice, fast action cards, computers, or whatever, but we can turn that into that. I mean, the flip book of the horse from 1896 galloping, which we've all seen 1,000 times, and people were amazed by the fact before movies that you could have a moving picture. That's what these games do. We're the ones that, how do they do it? Well, it's math. We're trying to get the averages right here. We're trying to make sure that Jerry Remy doesn't hit 40 homers and that George Brett can hit around 350 to 370. That's what it does. Everything else is our own imaginations. And just as you said, when you had, the game I was telling you about in what we were playing, when you're down 7-0, you're not thinking they're coming back from that. The chances are that they're not coming back from that. And you're just kind of playing out the string and then you start to think about it when they get the first run in and or you have a game where a team that should be winning easy leaves a lot of runners on. It's a 4-0 game in the 6th inning, and they've already left 7-8 runners on. They haven't taken their chance. And you just know in the back of your head that the other team should be losing this game by more. They still have a chance. And again, I don't think any game cooks the books. But once that momentum, you mentioned it with momentum in the Rangers game, once it starts to go, again, a lot like the moving picture or whatever, you see it in your head. And that's the magic of all this, is that statistically speaking, no, you should have lost the game. But there's a chance, and what do I do differently to try to make that chance happen? I know in Hockey Bones there isn't a lot of coaching decisions to be made. You put the right lines out there, and you put the puzzle together. But in Strat, do you double shift a line because you know that someone can penetrate, or whatever 1,000 different ways you solve that puzzle? The excitement comes from the fact that it can replicate that because you know how it's done, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. As
opposed to the game doesn't know what it's doing. When you play anything on a computer and you sim a season of Strat in 5 minutes or whatever, it's just garbage in, garbage out because it's flipping the card. Yeah. We're doing that, but yeah.
How many times have we played these games though and just walked away? And that's why we like to share our stuff, and we talk about this all the time. Sharing our stuff, with other people, whether on Facebook or Delphi or in our Discord group amongst ourselves. And it's stuff just happens. And I was streaming the Spiders finale, the Cleveland Spiders final game, and I think they had don't know if they have 22 wins. They were going for win 23 or whatever.
Going for win 23 because we were talking about Michael Jordan during the middle of that.
Okay, and so they ended up playing the Cincinnati Reds, final game of the season, and I'm playing this in Strat, and the Spiders came back and took the lead, and I took out because it was the end of the season. I took the starting pitcher out for whoever, the Cincinnati.
Noodles Hahn.
I love Noodles Hahn. And I put in some guy I never heard of. I was like, okay, let's put this guy in. It's just the Spiders, last game of the season. Who cares? And he got racked. I don't even think he could get out of the inning. And the Spiders jumped all over him. And the momentum of the game changed. And everybody in the chat room is now rooting for the Spiders to get their 23rd win. So I took that guy out and put in somebody else. And they racked him around. And they ended up putting 4 or 5 runs up in an inning. And so they had the lead going into the 8th. And what happens? The Reds start coming back, and it's just like, no, the Spiders worked so hard to get there, and the Reds are like, nope, we're here to play. And then it get into the 9th, and the Spiders got to run back, I think, to take the lead or something like. It was just the drama and the intensity in this game was you couldn't believe it. Unbelievable, as Al Red Sox fan likes to say. And then bottom of the 9th, Spiders got the guys to go 1, 2, 3 in order, and they hung on for the win, and it was just such a memorable one of those games I'll never forget playing, just because of everything that happened in it. Now, I couldn't remember individual plays, but I just remember the emotion I got from the Spiders hanging on. I think
that's it. It's amazing how that, again, basic math turns into believable emotion. There's an action that's happened, and I had a Celtics game a while ago that I stopped playing in the middle of the game. I think they were down 18 to Washington in 85-86, I think, at the Cap Center. And so I stopped. I play both teams, but I play fair. But, you want the Celtics to win. So I stopped, putted around, talked to you for a bit. So I can't believe it. They're down 18. And so there's a win expectancy graph that's in all the new Strat products. And I think Washington's chance to win was at 90% or something like that. And so, dinner time or whatever. And so I'm talking to you, and you said the Celtics will win that game. Like, come on. So they're down 18. I know they're a good team, but they're not. They went ahead with about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and I think that they won that game by 8. So you looked at the box score the next day, Celtics 408 or 101 or whatever it was, but you would never have known that they were 18 down, shut down the other team. And again, just the magic of you're making that believable in your head. You can see that in your head. You can see Washington missing shots that they made earlier and the Celtics taking advantage of rebounds. And again, we talked about all through the topic about how these things happen. They just do.
Yeah. But I just find now, granted, we've had games that are very just, unmemorable.
Oh, it's not every game. And I think that's the other key for it. If it was every game, if you just had the most unbelievable things happen in every game, then you would just kind of become numb to it and you wouldn't play so much. Because what would be the point if you blew a 20-point lead every game or something crazy close to every game? You do that. Just get me to the end of it and we'll just play it out. There are blowouts. But oh boy, there can be some. Can be some poundings, and there's not always the good team that does the pounding.
Oh, we've all played games, whatever. That's just a run of the mill game, whatever. But it's. I'm still amazed at how many times that I play some of these games, and the magic comes out, and it's just. A great comeback, or you stave off a great comeback, or an underdog team wins a game. It just you get done, and you just feel like that you really watched an actual game.
How do I get 6 innings out of a dead bullpen to preserve a game? It doesn't even necessarily have to be the great climactic moment, but knowing I had a game. I don't think Cleveland won the game, but I had a game where I had to piece together 18 outs out of a completely taxed bullpen because there was sometimes in the action PC games it's a rain delay and sometimes it's some sort of malfunction, and so they roll a random number and how long you're out for. So I had a 30-minute delay for a sick umpire, And it just cooked CC Sabathia. He just wasn't throwing anything anyway, but he was all out of pitches in the third. And it turned out, despite the fact that, I had to turn the story into the umpire got onto a bad hot dog and blah, 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 blah. Turned out that they had played 14 innings the night before. And you can't check that during the game in that particular program. And so I'm looking to see what long reliever is going to get me 50, 60 pitches. And I didn't know at that point it was a 14-inning game the night before. And they had used 7 pitchers, obviously, in a 14-inning game.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, my God, how are we going to do this? And they lost, and because they were going to lose anyway, but they kept that a game for a long time, despite the fact that I was throwing in players that were dog tired. You're looking at the outcome box. It's 400 batting average. It's 425, but yet it kept plugging along, and you just kind of, you never know where the story's coming from. And I think that's the magic of it all is, where's the story going to come from? Well, here it is. And, you can go back and forth and have the Don Henry within range, the least likely shooter to score that goal that's going to get you into overtime, or how are we doing this? Okay, we've crashed the car. We've got 3 quarters or 2 periods or whatever. They don't necessarily, but it keeps you interested and it keeps you involved in the game instead of, nope, button press, dice roll, move along.
Yeah. But
thing. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just, like I say, I maybe because I'm new and haven't been doing this a while, but I mean, I'd like to know what everybody thinks about this. How do they do that? Have you ever been playing a game and just said, this is pretty incredible that someone could sit down with pen and paper and design a game with dice and cards, or a computer game with a computer formula that it's amazing how you feel like you're actually in the game. You can see this stuff happening. Now, sometimes you get some crazy things, I get it. But for the most time, it's like you see this. It's like momentum happens in these games, and the cards and the dice don't have any idea what you're talking about because it is math. But in your head, the momentum has swung, and this team's coming back. And I could see the Rangers just winning this game. Like, they're going to win the game. They're getting all the rolls. They're getting shots on net. The shots are in range, and they're finally scoring on Eddie Johnston, and they're going to win the game, and they did. And it's just, and as upset as I was because the Bruins lost, I'm a Bruins fan, whatever, I had to respect the game and just enjoy it for what it was, because that was pretty amazing. It really was, that they had a comeback on the road in Game 2, and now they're set up with a nice 2-0 lead in the series. And the story is just kind of writing itself with every roll of the dice. It really is. So we want to know what you guys think. How do they do that? You ever had those moments where you just sit and appreciate the game for what it is, or the games, the multiple games that you played, and just like, this was awesome that this happened. I really felt like this was a real life thing happening and not just a game. So we want to know what you think. When we talk about how do they do that. Should we get to the 3 stars of the week?
Absolutely.
All right, so we got 3 stars coming up. Our 3rd star is Mike Cravens.
Yoo-hoo!
Thank you, Mike, for being a Patreon of the show here. Our 2nd star, in no particular order, here in episode 175, is Tony Zeppetto.
Yay!
Thank you, Tony, one of the newer Patreons here on the channel. Thank you so much. And our number 1 star is Adam Giorgandis.
Yes.
Hopefully we said that correctly, Adam. And in fact, I think we were talking to him on email about some hockey games as well. So thank you to Michael, Tony, and Adam, and to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. But those are our 3 stars of the week for episode 175. All right, so we wrap this one up?
Absolutely.
So this has been the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 175, and we talked about how do they do that? We had so many good moments in gaming. Just this week, I've had so many memorable moments in gaming. How do they do that? Really, how do they do that? So anyway, ways to get a hold of us. DigitalToDice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is how you can send us a text. DigitalToDice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/DigitalToDice. I love shows like this where it's so positive and fun. I couldn't wait to
Yeah.
talk about it this week, And even though my team come out on the losing end, it was still very memorable, very fun, very emotional. So anyway,
That's why we play them.
that's why we play the game. Alrighty. All right, I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Does Emmy get a goodbye this week? Is she around?
She's snoring. She could care less.
It must have been one of your stories.
Usually is. My wife will say that.